Well, hello, IDS 105 students, and welcome to week 5 in your IDS 105 class and here in the IDS 105 learning community. This week, we're going to talk about communication strategies to navigate conflict, which ties directly into all the concepts you're going to be covering and learning about this week. In addition to working on your assignments, you have a discussion assignment and you have your very last project draft. We're going to do an overview of that project part 4. As always, your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It's our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of instruction or course design that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the Online Accessibility Center, the OAC, as soon as possible at 866-305-9430. You can also email them at oac@snhu.edu or visit the Online Accessibility Center website. As a reminder, our Online Accessibility Center team helps you get content in a way that works best for you and your learning style. If you have questions about it or want to know more, reach out directly to that OAC team. Couple of housekeeping webinar reminders. Anytime you are in these webinars, whether you are watching them via our First Year Experience YouTube pages and leaving a comment, or you're watching them live, or you are in our IDS 105 learning community or your classroom spaces, those are always academic spaces, so be mindful of your conduct. These webinars are not graded or required, but we do talk about how to do assignments from week to week and go over concepts that you're working on in your courses. And hopefully you're having a little bit of fun along the way too. So y'all, first and foremost, before we dive into everything week 5, module 5, congratulations. Woohoo, high fives. You are officially past the halfway point of your IDS 105 term. These next few weeks go really quickly. So this is a great time just to remember to always make sure you're reading those course announcements because your faculty put a lot of helpful tips and tricks in there for your success. They break down different concepts, plus they often give reminders of when things are due. Don't forget to check that University SNHU student email. That is how the university communicates with you. Be sure to email, call, text with your faculty. If you have questions, if you're not sure on something, maybe you've fallen behind or you didn't do great on an assignment, want to see if you can maybe resubmit. The answer is always no unless you ask. So really advocate for yourself and take a minute to check the gradebook. See if you're missing any assignments, see if there's anything you really struggled on, and just see if you can get caught up or make a plan for your success. Or if you have questions on something or something just isn't like you're not understanding something right with the assignments or the concepts, please reach out to your faculty. We want you to be successful, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Remember, you can find that faculty information and how to get a hold of them in your Brightspace classroom if you click on that My Instructor announcement. So here we are in week 5. So I always like to take a minute and just kind of check in with everybody since we're sliding into the last half of the term. So first and foremost is the big reminder that you are not alone here at SNHU, okay? You've heard me talk all term long, and I'm sure your faculty and other classes too, about how much people support you have here at SNHU. There are resources for your success. If you're struggling with something technical or you don't have Microsoft Word or something compatible, we have Office 365 and the amazing SNHU help desk. If you're struggling with those writing mechanics or like just formulating kind of your writing and getting your flow together, it's been a long time since you've had, been in school or ever written academically. You have the incredible written feedback service from the academic support team. Maybe you just need somebody to kind of check in, accountability partner, go through some of the things, check those academic coaches or any of the peer mentors that are out there. Plus, if you're struggling with any content-driven things or certain classes, there's always that 24/7 drop-in tutoring. Plus, you have your amazing advisors that can always connect you to resources. Your faculty are here. Please ask us questions. We want you to be successful. Just remember you have so much support here, but none of it matters if you're not using it. So if you're struggling in your classrooms or you're struggling with some of your grades, but you're not attempting to use any resources or reach out or kind of do better or learn better, that's a problem, right? So let's take a minute, let's kind of assess where we're at, and let's dive in and connect for our success and going after our best grades and terms here, okay? I also like to remind students, like, are you plugged in? Like, do you know what your grades are? You really want to be checking your grades every week. Make sure that the assignments you thought you turned in got turned in. Faculty have that 7-day window to do grades. So if you don't see something or something doesn't seem right, like always reach out to your faculty, ask them. That's who can see your stuff. But make sure you're checking your grades. Make sure you're active in those discussion boards when you have discussion assignments. Are you checking that university email? That is how the university communicates with you. So make sure that you're checking it. just so you don't miss anything. If a faculty member or an advisor is trying to get a hold of you and they're calling you or text messaging you, maybe, like, make sure you're returning those calls because we want you to be successful. There's a reason they're reaching out, okay? All of this just helps us and you be on the same page with a commitment to your success, okay? So just remember, you have all of these resources here. This is not even a comprehensive list, but I like to remind students that here at the university, you have a lot of people support, and that's those SNHU resources. So that's things like the drop-in tutoring, written feedback from academic support. You have these learning community webinars you can go and watch at any point in time. The focus videos are up for the entire term. Maybe you need a part-time job or are starting to think about some of those like career goals. We have SNHU Career. Your academic advisor can connect you to so many different departments and answer your questions. You have the help desk if there's anything technical. We have the amazing library. The library has so many resources for helping you on any research projects or any kind of citation work. There's just a lot of cool stuff in the library. SNHU Connect is where you can find the IDS 105 learning community. If for some reason you're not in there yet, hop in there because it's also a place, SNHU Connect, where you can find clubs and organizations here at the university. Plus we have SNHU Wellness, which I like to remind students about. That is a space where there's great tips about like managing anxiety or stress or kind of balancing your time, learning how to prioritize your time. There's a lot of great resources that are just literally a click away. Plus, outside the classroom, think about those people who support your success. This could be our loved ones, right? It could be those pets, it could be those community members or those extended families or friends, but those people that maybe are helping you look over your assignments or picking up some of the slack at home so you can get your homework done or cheering you on. Those are the people you just want to remember and thank them. Like, take a minute and be like, hey, thank you. I really appreciate you. It goes a long way. But also just like keep those people close to you because when those days aren't so great, it's awesome to have those people that can help pick you back up. Okay. So you have a lot of time left in the term. The term goes fast, I feel like, after the halfway point, but you have a lot of time left in the term. So again, let this be your reminder. If you have struggled on something, you've missed something, or you need to catch up, this is your reminder to get with your instructor or your advisor and see if you can get a plan made for your success, okay? So just a quick recap about week 5, module 5. You have your very last project draft you're going to be working on this week. It's the very last section, part 4. It's all about communication strategies to navigate conflict. As always, those project drafts are due by Sunday or before, and then you have a discussion assignment this week. Initial post due Thursday, responding to at least 2 of your classmates by Sunday. Y'all, do not miss the discussion assignments. I tell you this all the time because I am not joking when I say that if a student doesn't do an initial post here or there, or they don't respond to classmates, those are major points that you're missing, and it can definitely be the difference in a letter grade. So don't do that. Take the time to plan your week. Make sure you get that initial post, answering those series of questions by Thursday and get those classmate responses. You just have to respond to 2 other peers by Sunday or before, and then project draft due by Sunday. A couple of just reminders about the assignments. For that project draft, there is a template. It's a Microsoft Word document. If you don't have Microsoft Word or something compatible for your project draft, you want to make sure that you get that. You do get Office 365 for free as an SNHU student. You can find that underneath the help area in your classroom, and then just scroll down to Office 365 and other software, okay? Video note submissions are absolutely not permitted for the project drafts or any pieces or parts of the project. Pay attention to the questions you're answering. We're on the very last part. And then just a reminder, initial discussion post due Thursday with those peer responses and project due by Sunday. Okay, so let's chat about this week's main topics, and that is conflict. Conflict and communication strategies to handle and navigate conflict, all right? So when we think about conflict, when you think about conflict, actually, let me rephrase that. How do you feel at first? Like, are you like, oh, conflict, yikes, I don't like conflict, I'm going to stay away from conflict? Or are you like, yeah, I don't mind engaging in it. And like, if there's some conflict, like I can handle it, or you're maybe somewhere in the middle. But I always like to remind students that sometimes we just automatically assume that conflict is a bad thing or like a negative thing. And it isn't. Sometimes we might experience conflict because we have a difference of opinion, or maybe there was a simple miscommunication, or maybe we're different from one another and our background or our values or what we believe in are different. Or maybe there's a lack of trust, right? Those are just some reasons we might experience conflict. But like I said, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes when there's conflict, like if there's a miscommunication or a difference of opinion, or there's a difference in values or a lack of trust, conflict allows us to see things through the perspective of others. there's been many times in my life, I'm sure you guys have had this happen, where maybe there's a miscommunication and you're like, oh, I learned something new today. Either how to communicate with this person or like, oh my gosh, I had no idea you felt that way, right? Or maybe they are somebody that their background is different than me or their like beliefs are different than me. We might just learn some things or be able to see it through their lens and understand where they're coming from. It opens up the opportunity for feelings and thoughts to be seen or heard. We can learn a lot more about each other, and it can also help us solve issues or problems because sometimes if everything's just going like as normal and there's never any conflict, sometimes things are being buried, which are going to be a problem later, right? So when we think about conflict, think about yourself and like how you handle conflict. What are some of the experiences or situations that you have been in where there's been conflict and either you've learned something or you understood something about somebody else or even yourself? I know for me, when I think about conflict, I would rather sit down in person with somebody and talk about something than like text message or, anything like that, or even on the phone. I would rather be like, hey, let's get together, like, let's chat this through. But like I have people in my life, my husband and my friends that are like, yeah, that's like a quick phone call or like a quick text message. I'll handle this. And I have others that are like, oh, I don't want to be any part of it. So kind of think about like, how do you handle conflict? What are your feelings about conflict? And then think about the experiences that you've had in your life, or maybe a book you've read, or like a show that you watch, or a movie, as we kind of work through the concepts this week and apply them to your discussion assignment and your project draft assignment. So you do have a discussion assignment this week. Again, initial post due Thursday. Respond to at least 2 of your classmates by Sunday. You are answering these 3 questions. One, what is one example of a conflict situation you have seen in films, television shows, or books? So you want to give that example. And then you want to answer, how could you apply any restorative practices in the situation? You're going to learn about restorative practices in your module reading. And then how could being vulnerable, having an open mind, and considering others help with navigating the conflict identified in the situation that you picked in number 1? Okay, so those are the 3 questions for your discussion. This week for the project draft, it's your very last one. So remember back in week 2, you picked a scenario or you created your own scenario. And you use that same scenario in week 2, week 3, and week 4 to answer the questions. You're going to still use that same scenario, whether it was school, workplace, or personal, or you created your own, to answer the questions that are here for your very last project draft, communication strategies to navigate conflict. Remember, when you're answering these questions, think about your own experiences. Think about what we've been talking about or learning about in the classroom, and think about your scenario. I always tell students it's really helpful to like use examples and details to answer the questions. You can make things up that are relevant to your scenario or relevant to the questions if it helps you answer what it is asking of you, okay? So for question 1, you want to describe the components of the conflict that is represented in your chosen scenario, okay? So like if, for example, if we use that school scenario, remember the student's kind of upset because the advisor said like, maybe you shouldn't work anymore, maybe you should go to part-time, and the student's like, wait, like that's kind of a problem, So talk about the components of that. Why is that a conflict? If you created your own, what is the conflict? If you have personal or workplace or personal, what's the conflict? Explain it in detail. Question 2, describe different interpersonal communication strategies that you could use to help resolve the conflict in your scenario. 3, choose a communication strategy to resolve the conflict. Include an explanation of why you chose that strategy. So remember, you have to pick a communication strategy, but also explain it. Question 4, describe any potential communication challenges that could arise in your chosen scenario. So think about your scenario like, like for example, the personal one with like the family member that you like are not on the same page with, like maybe things that are in the news or political stuff, whatever it is. Like, what are those potential communication challenges, right? What are they? Question 5, describe both the benefits and challenges of using restorative practices to address the conflict in your chosen scenario. Again, restorative practices, you're going to learn a lot within your module reading and the required resources this week, okay? So as a reminder too, you can find those helpful documents like the project template is underneath what to submit. You can always go back and get a refresher on those project scenarios. It's underneath supporting materials. But I wanted to take you just real quick through the classroom space. So hold on just a second. And just kind of remind you where to find everything. So like I mentioned earlier, you can click on academic support. And if you click on academic support, It pulls up their menu of services. That written feedback is a great place for you to upload and submit any of those drafts that you're working on, their SNHU assignments, for written feedback. Select the areas you want the tutor to focus on, and they get you stuff back within 12 hours. Students really enjoy using that. If you haven't done that yet, that's a great place to start, okay? Also in module 5, remember, click the blue, gets you where you want to go. Always open up the entire module introduction. Review the overview and objectives, scroll down, arrow over. A lot of times y'all miss the actual reading that is within your module. So you'll notice right here, those restorative practices that were asked about on some of the assignments, it's right here. So make sure that you review the reading that's within the module. You always want to make sure that you do that in addition to any of those required resources. So the required resources are those like textbook chapters you might be reading. Any extra links to articles. The videos can be really helpful too, especially this week as we talk about a little bit about the power of vulnerability and also keeping an open mind. So those are 2 great videos for you to watch here this week in Module 5. As a reminder, you have that initial discussion post due by Thursday, respond to your classmates by Sunday. And then for that module assignment, let's go back under learning module, sorry, and go down to module 5. I wanted to point out with those project drafts, always click on guidelines and rubric. When you do that, it opens up an overview of the assignments and the reminder of the questions you're answering. Here is that project template. So just click the blue, it opens up that Word document you can type right in. So if you've been using the same template from week to week, you're just going to finish the end of it. If you're somebody that created your own document, totally fine. That's totally fine. Just make sure you answer all of the questions and have all pieces and parts. And remember, when it comes to module 7, you have to put everything in one document, okay? And then you have these project scenarios in case you need that refresher. I did want to remind you too, always look over the rubric. It tells you how you're going to be graded, but I wanted to just show you, if you click on that project template, now you will not have highlights. This is just an easy way for me to break down the different weeks. So remember, back in week 2, you picked your scenario and you answered all the questions in part 1. Week 3, you answered the part 2 questions. Week 4, you answered the part 3 questions. Now we're in week 5 and you're answering this last part of the template. Okay, so that's all you have left as far as the template goes. Remember, use details, use examples, think about experiences that you can offer. The more information you can give, it helps complete your thoughts and it helps connect the concepts to your scenario and to the answers that you're giving, okay? The other thing I wanted to just point out just really quick is just a reminder in case you need it underneath this help. If you click that little arrow and you go to online student services, when the menu pulls up, it has all of the different departments here at SNHU. If for some reason you do not yet have Microsoft Word or something compatible, you can click on this Office 365 and other software to get it connected, downloaded and connected for your success. Okay. All right, y'all, that's it for week 5. I hope you have an incredible week. Remember that discussion assignment, make sure you get that done, the initial post and the peer responses, and then you have that last piece of your project draft. As always, if you have questions, if you're stuck on anything, please don't hesitate to post a question in the learning community for IDS 105. But always reach out to your instructors too, especially if it's anything assignment specific or grade specific. They're the ones that can see all of that and they want you to be successful. So have an amazing week 5, y'all. And remember, you got this.